Okay, hello everyone. All right, so let's see another example of an if statement. Okay, so let's create a program that's going to ask the user to enter 3 test scores, and then we're going to find an average of those 3 test scores, and then we're going to determine if the average is, let's say, greater than or equal to, let's say, a certain pass mark of, let's say, 95, right? If the average is greater than or equal to 95, we say, congratulations, you passed. All right, so I'm going to use the input function. Actually, in the last video, I thought I hadn't explained the input function, so we didn't use it, but I have. So let's use it in this one. So I'm going to basically call the input function, and in the input function, I'm going to enter our prompt, what we're going to display to the user. I'm going to say enter score 1. Again, we are asking the user for 3 test scores, so enter score 1. Please, and I'm used to saying please, so please enter score 1. All right, and then the input function is going to pop up some kind of text box, and it's going to allow the user to type in something. Now, whatever the user types is going to be returned back. It's going to be sent back to us as a string, and so I'm going to create a variable that's going to store that. So I'm going to call this user score 1. So user score 1 is going to store whatever the user typed for score 1. Now it's returning that as a string, right? But we cannot use strings in calculations. We need to make sure we convert that string to a number. In this case, we want it as a float, right? Because it's a score. It could be 57.8. It could be 80.5. So we need to convert whatever the user is typing over here to a float, and I'm going to do that with the float function. So float function here, I'm going to surround everything that the user has typed with the float function. So I've converted whatever the user has typed to a float, and I'm storing that in user score 1. I'm going to do the same thing for score 2 and score 3. It's going to be the same process. So same thing here. I'm going to change the variable to user score 2, and I'm going to say please enter score 2. We're going to convert that also to a float. Same thing for user score 3, and I'm going to say please enter score 3. Actually, this is a sentence, so there's no need to type it as if I was creating a variable. All right, so I have 3 test scores here. Before that, let's also define our pass mark. Okay, I'm going to create a variable. I'm going to call it pass mark, and I'm going to set it equal to, let's say, 95. All right, so now let's calculate our average. We have the 3 test scores. We know the average is basically the sum of all the test scores divided by how many test scores there are. The sum is going to be user score 1 plus user score 2 plus user score 3. And then how many test scores there are? There are 3 test scores. So we're going to divide the sum of all the scores by how many scores there are. So I'm going to create, let's first work on a calculation. So I'm going to add user score 1 to user score 2. So user score 1 plus user score 2 plus user score 3. Okay, so now we want the sum divided by how many scores there are. We don't want just this divided by how many scores there are. So we need to surround this with parentheses, right? So we can get the sum of this, of these scores divided by how many scores there are. There are 3 test scores. I'm going to divide it by 3. This is going to give us our average. If we didn't add our parentheses over here, it would basically divide user score 3. But it's basically going to add user score 1 and user score 2, and then divide user score 3 by 3. That's not what we want. We want to divide the sum of all the 3 test scores by basically how many scores there are, which is 3. So that's why we need our parentheses. I'm going to hit the undo to put our parentheses back. So this calculation will basically result in our average. So we need a place to store that value too. So I'm going to create a variable. I'm going to call it average, and average is going to store the average of the test scores. Okay, all the sum of the test scores divided by how many test scores there are. So now we have our average, we have our test scores, we have our pass mark. So let's determine if the average is either greater than greater than the pass mark, or equal to the pass mark. Let's determine if the average is greater than or equal to the pass mark, and we do that with the if statement, which we've seen. So we type our if clause. So if, and then we type our condition. Our condition is going to be if average is greater than or equal to, again, these two are together, they are not separate. Right? If you put a space in between them, you separated them. So we are checking to see if average is either greater than okay, or equal to the pass mark. And then our colon. This is our condition. It has to result to either true or false, right? And then what we basically type the block of code, our block of code. It could be one, it could be multiple lines of code. We type our block of code that should happen, or that should run, that should execute when this condition is true. Okay, so I'm going to hit an enter. Make sure that your block of code is indented. Make sure it's not on the same line as the if statement or as the if clause. You indent your block of code. It's one line, you indent it. If it's multiple lines, they all have to be indented and they all have to be on the same line, but they don't have to be on the line of the if clause. So if average is greater than or equal to the pass mark, what we want to do is say, let's print out the message saying that congratulations, you passed the class, something like that. You passed the course. Okay. And if the average is not greater than or equal to the pass mark, nothing happens. Okay, remember with the if statement, the only time the block of code that runs when the condition is true, the only time that block of code runs is when this is true. Okay, that's what I'm trying to say. The only time this code over here, or if you have multiple lines, that the code you've written over here runs. The only time it runs, or they run, is when the condition over here is true. If it's not true, if the condition is not true, nothing happens. The if statement is skipped, and then anything under the if statement, anything below it, okay, not in it, anything below it runs. If this is not true, okay, the if statement is fixed. These statements do not run. It's skipped, and then anything below the, did I say it's shift? If this is not true, okay, the statements that are supposed to run when this is true do not run. Okay, so those statements are skipped, and then anything below the if statements, not in it, anything below the if statements run. All right, so I hope that's clear. I know I'm talking too much, but I'm sorry. Don't worry. I just want this to be clear. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and run this program. I think we're done. All right, so run this program, and let's see what happens. All right, so I forgot to put colons here. All right. So run the program. Please enter score 1. I'm going to enter 95. Please enter score 2. I'm going to enter 45. Score 3. I'm going to enter 67, and then hit enter. And it says that, but well, basically what the program is trying to say is that I didn't pass the class because my average wasn't greater than or equal to 95. Well, there's no way to see it now, right? There's no way to see it now. But this is just to give an idea of how if statements work. The only time we see this statement is when our condition is true. Let's try high numbers and see. Let's run the program again and try high numbers. I'm going to type in, let's say, 100 for the first score, 98 for the second score, and then 97 for the third score. And then it says, congratulations, you passed the course, because the average of 100, 98, and 97 is greater than or equal to 95. We can actually try it and see. Just so we can clearly see it, I like to pull out the calculator. Even though most or some of you can do this in your head, if not all of you. All right, so it's 100, right, plus 98 plus 97. It's 295 divided by 3. That gives you 98.33. So 98.33 is greater than or equal to 95. It's greater than 95. So that's why we pass the course. So that's how the if statement works. This is another variation of how we would write or use if statements in programs. So get used to them. We're going to use them a lot in programming, and they are also very powerful tools to have. Okay, so if you have any questions, please comment down below. I know that it was a bit rough. I was explaining a lot. It's just because I want it to be clear. Okay. All right. So if you have any questions, please comment down below, and I'll do everything to respond to them. Thank you very much for watching. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time with the next video. All right then. Bye-bye.